Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and today we're going to discuss another groundbreaking discovery coming from within our cells. And specifically a discovery of a completely new, never before seen, and previously unknown organelle that has always kind of surprised biologists because nobody expected this to exist at all. And you can kind of see the image of this new organelle right here. Here HF stands for Hemifusome. And so let's discuss this discovery and why it's important, but also let's briefly discuss some of the major advances in the last few years because quite a few organelles, unexpected organelles, have been discovered in just the last 5 years. And for anyone studying biology or for anyone who's done any biology, this might be super surprising because in every single biology book, usually our cell is described this way. So a typical human cell or a typical eukaryotic cell has always been described as containing one of these organelles and possibly nothing else. And these organelles have been discovered decades ago, with the most famous and most important ones of course being nucleus and mitochondria. Actually, if you want to learn about some of the most unexpected discoveries about mitochondria, check out one of the videos in the description. But in case you need to catch up with your biology, here's the basic representation of all of this. You can also find the link for this textbook in the description. But obviously not all cells contain all organelles. For example, chloroplasts do not exist inside human cells, which is why humans cannot photosynthesize. I wish we could, but we can't. Likewise, cnidocytes, or cnidoblasts, can only be found in animals that can sting. So for example, different types of corals, different types of jellyfish, and some other marine animals. And that's because this organelle is specialized in injecting toxins. Once again, not something we can do, but once again, maybe I wish we did, because there are so many people I just want to sting sometimes. But the best example that's usually present in most single-cell life, but is completely absent from the complex organisms like us, is an organelle that you see in red in the top right corner that's referred to as an eye spot. And this is something that allows a lot of simple life to detect and react to light. And naturally our cells don't require these photoreceptive organelles, as they usually rely on chemical means to communicate. But a lot of these additional organelles have all been discovered a long time ago. And well, really for decades, no new organelle has been discovered in biology, which made a lot of biologists believe that maybe we discovered pretty much everything. Nobody expected any new discoveries, or at least something that would be so complex and so unusual that it could be seen as something groundbreaking. But because there is so much life to explore out there, in just the last 5 years, at least a few new organelles have already been accidentally discovered. And one of the first such discoveries was sometimes in 2023. This was referred to as PXO bodies, phosphate storage organelles, discovered completely by accident inside intestines of fruit flies. And fruit flies, as you probably know, are some of the most studied creatures out there. We basically know everything there is to know about them. And this was quite unexpected. And so here we have these phosphate storing organelles that seem to do just one thing. They seem to release phosphate into the cell when the levels of phosphates are low inside the fruit fly intestines, which seems to have just one role, maintaining phosphate stability. They recapture phosphates if the levels are too high, they release them if they're too low. But this was, for now at least, only discovered inside fruit flies. And so now researchers for the past couple of years have been actively trying to discover this in someone else. So far nothing like this has been found in humans, but at least some animals out there have to contain this too. We just don't really know who yet. Then, around the same time, within just a few months, researchers also found this, the yellow-green dots you see on the screen. This is now referred to as Exclusome. The blue stuff, by the way, is the nucleus. And this seems to be a new organelle discovered in various mammalian cells, mostly composed of DNA rings and potentially involved in protecting chromosomes and very likely some kind of a cellular immunity process. Now, because this organelle is mostly composed of DNA rings, also known as plasmids, and because it's located within the cell plasma of the mammalian cell, here is believed to only play protection roles, very likely protecting chromosomes and DNA itself from possibly some kind of a viral infection. But it also seems to play at least some role in the cellular immunological memory, basically helping the cell remember when there was some kind of an infection and how to fight it. As a matter of fact, this is now believed to be potentially one of the oldest eukaryotic organelles, possibly existing for billions of years, but only discovered in 2023. and once again completely by accident. You can learn about this in the study in the description. Then, sometimes last year, in 2024, we had one of the major discoveries in biology once again. A new organelle we've never seen anywhere, now referred to as Nitroplast. The first ever discovered nitrogen-fixing organelle, or organelle that can fix nitrogen and turn it into something useful. Now this was only discovered inside marine algae, so it most likely only exists in very simple marine organisms, but it does have a lot of potential applications because nitrogen fixation is super important for all life. We've discussed this particular discovery in a lot of details in one of the previous videos in the description, but here one of the biggest surprises was the fact that this used to be a bacterium. So kind of like 2 billion years ago, when ancient cells captured some kind of a bacterium that eventually became mitochondria, here this also seems to be a nitrogen-fixing bacterium, very similar to the one called UCYN-A, a bacterium that kind of resembles this, that's now been integrated into this marine organism and has already officially become its new organelle. And so here this was also exciting because this was one of the most recent examples of symbiosis, something that once again we've never seen before and was completely unexpected. And now, in 2025, we have our fourth discovery, Hemifusome, a structure that seems to be present in most complex life, and a structure whose main purpose seems to be recycling within the cell. And so yes, this is found inside our cells, inside our body, and is currently described as a kind of a loading dock for various types of vesicles. And normally inside the cell, various types of vesicles are used to transport all kinds of stuff in and out of the cell. These are basically membrane-bound sacs involved in cellular transport. And so extremely recently, by using extremely powerful cryo-electron tomography, a powerful imaging tool that freezes cells in time to create these beautiful images, once again by accident, scientists discovered this, a previously unknown organelle inside our cells, which seems to be responsible for the formation of vesicles, but also recycling, waste disposal, and also sorting out a lot of materials inside the cell. And so these unusual hemifusomes discovered by the University of Virginia School of Medicine seem to mostly play a role in recycling and discarding all kinds of stuff. But their main job seems to be creating and packing vesicles, which are then used to transport materials across the cell. And so here, if we compare vesicles to delivery trucks, these hemifusomes are the loading dock, organelles used by the cell in order to create, pack, and transfer vesicle across the cell. And turns out that they are pretty common in some cells, especially the ones that are very active. For example, because of these organelles, our cells are able to create extremely complex vesicles and pack them with a lot of stuff that would be otherwise impossible. Or they can also transform some vesicles into other ones, depending on the cell's needs. And so definitely a pretty exciting discovery, but also a really important one because, turns out, it also seems to be associated with certain types of conditions. The one mentioned in this particular study is referred to as HPS, Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome, a rare genetic disorder that can cause vision problems, can also cause albinism and issues with blood clotting and lung disease, and has previously been somewhat difficult to treat or to even figure out how it happens. And strangely enough, this is extremely common in a lot of Puerto Ricans, with at least 1 in 1,800 cases. And here there seems to be a genetic problem with how various cells process and handle the vesicles, with the scientists behind the study suggesting that it most likely relates to these newly discovered hemifusomes, implying that by studying these organelles and by discovering how they're produced and what happens when they get damaged, this can potentially lead to new cures when it comes to certain genetic disorders. And so definitely a pretty unusual, pretty exciting, and completely unexpected discovery. But at least for now, that's kind of all we know. We'll definitely come back and discuss these biological discoveries in some more detail once there are some updates, but at least for now, it's pretty exciting to know that in just the last 3 years, we had at least 4 separate discoveries of new unique organelles we never knew existed. And because microscopes are getting better and better, and biological techniques are improving more and more, chances are that we're going to be discussing this again very, very soon. On that note, thank you for watching, subscribe, come back tomorrow to learn something else, support the channel on Patreon where you can find additional videos without any ads, and can DM me directly, or by joining the channel membership where you get early access and a few more secret videos. Or maybe by buying the Wonderful Person t-shirt you can find in the description. Stay wonderful, I'll see you tomorrow, and as always, bye bye.